was trying to make a video. Yeah, go on with it. Now you left wet kitty paw prints everywhere. Go figure, guys. Good morning. Welcome to today's edition of the Wellness Homesteader. We're disinfecting the countertop. It's a multiple time a day thing. You need to get down and go play, buddy. Come on, Poop Pie. Come on. Say hello to the peoples. Can you say hello? Yeah, that's very good. Thank you. All right, guys. Well, how are you this morning? I tell you, I am rejoicing to feel so much better still. So it wasn't just a fluke one-day thing. Pardon me. Hopefully I won't hiccup today, but no guarantees on that as well. So I thought, because I was so remiss in really publishing any content about the pantry challenge for going into week 2. Oh, that's my own hair. Good. I would maybe do some content today, which this should be up on Saturday. So you all will have some encouragement, maybe some ideas. I certainly need to do a reset, as I mentioned in an earlier video, and I'm not trying to make this all about poor me or anything. Due to some medication side effects and just horrible nausea, I hadn't been able to eat very much last week. Let me rephrase that. I hadn't been able to eat a lot of variety last week. So my focus was more on, okay, you have things you can eat, let's eat those. And then once you're feeling better, you can get back on to really, you know, making good use of your pantry. So you'll see I've got some things out. We're gonna do a couple things today, but I thought we would start out. Y'all, I've never had so many people I don't know well look in my refrigerators, but I thought we would just go ahead and do a very quick tour of what I did well with, what still needs to be used, some ideas that I have. We're gonna make some basic yeast bread, which I think is gonna be really yum. I'm gonna do one for now, one for the freezer. So, and I'm sure you can cut the recipe in two. I'm just not going to, because if I'm going to heat my oven, because it's freezing cold outside, I'm going to, you know, make 2 loaves. Why not? All right, guys, let me reposition the camera. We're gonna go into the fridge and I'm gonna talk about what I did well and what I didn't do so well on. Stay tuned. So at first glance, you might think, well, this looks no different than it did. And yes, my sourdough needs some attention, but actually it does. I did finish the hummus. I am making frozen yogurt out of the remaining yogurt that we had. The cream cheese is also gone. I still have loads, guys, because my son made me cheese, smoked cheese for Christmas. I still have some breakfast meats, not a ton. I'm not out of tortillas yet. I still have 3. This still looks very sad with like, oh, I have 2 whole onions, woohoo. I haven't touched the apples. So one thing you may notice up here, it says January 2nd. Y'all, it's fine. I've smelled it, I've tasted it. We're gonna do something with that to not let it go to waste. So all in all, this is just some leftovers from a meal I made. We've gotten down anything that's gonna imminently spoil, with the exception of the milk, the cheeses, and the meats are still fine. You'll notice a huge difference in this refrigerator. So I still have my butters, I still have a little bit of almond milk and things that are home prepared, but I like to keep refrigerated. I did pull a couple 0 sugar protein shakes out of my long-term pantry. They are both past their best by date, but I also managed to consume 2. So those are my final 2. I have a tiny bit of bread left, which has been in there a while. This is my fruitcake. I haven't touched my fruit. This freezer, guys, is still pretty overloaded. I used some frozen veg. I did use some pork and, oh, 1 seafood, and I know there's milk in there, guys. I just have to play Jenga in this freezer. I still have a lot of food that needs to be used. And one thing I did notice this morning, these are my 2 creamy slushy ice makers. I am pretty low on chicken overall, so I do need to realize that if I use all the chicken, pardon my hiccups now, I'll have to move to some of the other items. So I kind of want a chicken this week, but we're going to dig through here and meal plan as this video goes on. One thing I learned through the last 11 days of the pantry challenge is I need some go-to things. So if you're not buying convenience food and you're concerned about nutrition and you want to make sure that you don't order out or do things like that, you need to have some quick and easy meals when life throws you sideways. So whether it's an illness, whether, you know, a loved one needs attention and care, which is usually the case for me, but this time it was me, you need to have some quick go-to meals so that you aren't tempted. And meal planning is great, guys. You know I'm horrible at it, but I think you have to be realistic in that life does go sideways. For me, quite a bit. So I decided I need to come up with maybe half a dozen things. Either that I prep and make into a freezer meal from things I'm using up, or something that will help me use up leftovers. So one of the things I came up with, and I should have had this out, but, and I can link this below, guys, is frittatas. So this is a Cuisinart frittata pan. All it is 2 pans hooked together. Nothing super fancy about it, except that when you make a frittata, and I don't like my eggs browned, you cook it, you turn it over, you finish cooking it, you can take the lid off, finish it in the oven. So that's typically a frittata. Why frittata? Well, let me introduce you to 10 dozen eggs. And I might have maybe 3 more jars like this. So when my girls are laying very well and I don't have customers to buy my eggs, I freeze dry them. However, these have sat there on the shelf for a rainy day. Now they're good for a very long time. It's not that they're in imminent danger of spoilage, but if I'm looking at shelf life, freshness, etc., I need to use those freeze-dried eggs. And honestly, y'all, it's a tablespoon of the powder with a tablespoon of water. I cannot tell the difference. I don't eat fried eggs. I only eat scrambled or omelets or that kind of thing. I can't tell the difference between a fresh egg and a freeze-dried egg. Very different from the powdered eggs of old. So frittatas are great because you saw I had a little bit of breakfast meat and a whole bunch of cheese. And then I'll have like a small amount of leftover veg. You can put anything, leftover potatoes, anything in a frittata. Kind of think omelet when you think about it. You can use up fermented vegetables. There are so many uses for frittatas, but I didn't have a frittata pan. So I don't think it breaks the pantry challenge. Actually, I got this before the end of the year to get yourself, you know, some needed things like a creamy, Ninja Creamy or whatsoever. But that is going to be one of my go-tos. It's quick, it's easy, it helps me use up things. It's something I know that stays within my guidelines of not eating too many carbs or too much sugar, because I want to be non-diabetic is the most reason. But there may be other things. One of the things I had thought about was maybe I need to come up with some pizza, because pizza's life. Pizza's my favorite food, y'all. And I like weird pizza, I like vegetable pizza, I like cheese pizza. I don't necessarily need all of the pepperonis, etc. I do have plenty of sausage in the freezer that I could, you know, cook up a pound of sausage, make up a few pizzas, and then to be able to come home from, you know, whatever has happened and put that frozen pizza in the oven, that's gonna be a good option for me. I think Jessica is brilliant, and I think the way that she plans and uses everything is kind of what I aspire for. I'm not as good at it as she is, y'all. I highly encourage you, her channel's linked below, to go visit her channel and just see her week 1, because it put me to shame because I ate a lot of peanut butter and cheese and soup. So one thing I did do well last week was I decided I had a lot of things on my long-term pantry shelf that were store purchased items that were past their best by date. Now, I'm very careful. I smell everything, I taste everything, you know, make sure it's not spoiled. I got rid of so many cans of soup, a few, not so many, during the first 10 days. I also had a lot of store canned meat. So I had a lot of tuna. Tuna is not my favorite, y'all, but it's high in protein. And you know, you don't want to overeat tuna because of the mercury content. When my son had his cat before, poor Chester, RIP, he was a very particular eater, so I would always buy a lot of tuna on sale, and then when my son would come home, I would give it to him. Well, now there's no cat, so I guess there's the mom to eat it. So I got through a lot of that. One of the other things I have, and I absolutely love, I have frozen fish, I will eat it, but I have pink salmon. And I can't wait to have greens and sprouts to make a salad and put the salmon patty on top. But this is also past its best by date, only by 2 months, November 24th, so not even 2 full months. But this will be a great thing for me to use and to have a meal. So I continued through the pantry, and I had purchased, back when I was really trying the gluten-free, which y'all, I still do a lot of gluten-free things, and I try not to eat highly processed flours, but I didn't notice that big of a health difference. Okay, that's just honest. So I have this cassava penne, no nuts, no legumes, no gums, no grains, no gluten. Man, what is in it then? Organic cassava flour and water. So we'll see how this is, because as a kid growing up, I always had macaroni and tomatoes, don't knock it till you try it, and salmon patties. That was one of my mom's go-tos. So that will help me use up some of my tomato overboard. And this is, I didn't do a lot of pints this year, and so this is last year, so this is 2022. It's fine. So for the milk, I was like, wow, I'm not a cow's milk drinker, guys. I'm just not. Too much cow's milk does not agree with me. It is one of my food sensitivities, but I can have some without it. Pay no attention to the cat behind the mirror. Frank, what's he doing? He's learned, guys, say hello to the peoples. Don't be grouchy. I'm probably choking him. He's learned how to operate the Echo Show because it is a touch screen. And he's like, I see the pretty pictures and make it talk to me, Mom. You leave my Echo Show alone. Yes, you do. Back to cow's milk. Well, I happen to think when I make a protein shake, if I want it thicker, a lot of times I will put sugar-free pudding in it. Now, is this the healthiest thing in the world? It isn't. It's got a ton of things that I can't even pronounce, but it will help me use up the milk. If I can't eat all 4 servings, I'm okay with that. At least I didn't just dump the milk down the drain. So those are the type things I'm trying to do to make sure that I'm not wasting food to the best of my ability and to plan ahead. And I am going to do some meal planning and some meal prep list off camera. I'm sorry, guys, I got a hiccup. Oh. I'll have to tell you a little story. I get long-winded when I do these videos, don't I? Many years ago, many years ago, when I was about, oh, I don't know, it might have been 40, I had a surgery where it was laparoscopic, because I had an ovarian tumor, cyst, and so they blow you up full of air, which I hiccuped for 36 hours straight. So I've always been prone to hiccups. And I was thinking, man, what did they give me? And now I remember it was like Valium or something, some kind of a sedative. It was horrible. Stop the hiccups, but I'm not gonna do that. These will go away on their own or get much better. All right, guys, let me get reorganized here, clear the counter. We're gonna make some good homemade bread, and you might notice something. What is this, you ask? Why, this is my grain mill. We are actually gonna grind our own flour instead of going to the easy, so that I can start utilizing some of my long-term grain storage. Stay tuned. For those of you who have never ground your own wheat, y'all, it is so simple. I'll share the recipe book with you, but what this called for was 4 to 4.5 cups of freshly ground hard red wheat berries. So if you want to know what they look like, I have this in my Gamma bucket. And so it just looks like seeds. And you do have to play a little bit, I think, with the grind. I actually ran mine through twice. I don't plan to sift out any of the wheat bran. You can. It just is healthier, in my opinion, to have the fiber in the bread. I'm also following exactly what the recipe says. Now, I can link my mill. That is a Nutri-Mill. I also have another grain mill that will do a lot of different things like bigger beans and corn and such, where this is more of a utility flour grinding grain mill, in my opinion. But I will tell you something, guys. I can't believe that I was so lazy I wouldn't even grind my own wheat, because it took, I don't know, what, a couple minutes? All right, let me get organized here. We'll get to making some bread. All right, y'all, ignore the pictures in the background. So the book that I'm going to be cooking from today is the Essential Home Ground Flour book by Sue Becker. Bread Beckers is their YouTube channel. They do amazing things. This is an excellent book. So I'm going to be making, if you have the book on page 128, the basic yeast bread. So it says, this basic yeast dough is easy to make and very forgiving if either too much or too little flour is added. The recipe uses no milk or butter, and the egg is optional, as is the gluten and lecithin. Basic yeast bread dough can be used in a variety of ways, blah, blah, blah. So this makes 2 1-pound loaves. And what I will be using, and as always, y'all, if you have a question about, you know, where'd you get your mixer, what kind of bread pans are these are USA bread pans, best bread pans I've ever owned, hands down. Do not stick. I will be spraying them, so you do need grease or parchment-lined baking pans. So the directions for this are a little bit different. They give cups and milliliters. I'm going to do by cups. So the first thing we need is a 1.5 cups of hot water that is about 130 Fahrenheit, 54 Celsius. So let me heat up a little water. Forgot to do that. Thought I was all prepared. In a large mixing bowl, combine hot water, 1 1/2 cups. And if y'all are wondering, well, I don't have a thermometer. I do. You know, how long did it take you? About a minute in my microwave. Then you need oil and honey, 1/3 cup each. Don't have my spatula. Oh my word. No, I can't tell you how different cooking on YouTube is than cooking in real life. Okay. So I mixed those two together because I thought it would be easier to get the honey out of the cup, and it does seem like that worked. How about me? All right. Then it says your 2 teaspoons of salt. Now you've all heard you have to be really careful about mixing salt and yeast, but the way they have you layer this, I think it's going to be just fine. If you are limiting your salt, I will tell you, if you make bread without salt, it will be terrible. So I'm just using some Redmond real salt. Now the egg, as they said, is optional. I'm gonna go ahead and use the egg. My poor chickens, and I've washed the outside here. They didn't give me any eggs yesterday, and that's a first. So, but they've also been stuck in the run because of our really bad weather. So I'm hoping this will make a difference because they're out today. Okay, so we have our egg. Now, it calls for rice bran extract or lecithin. And you may be like, well, what kind of additive is lecithin? Well, I'm not going to use soy lecithin. I'm going to use sunflower lecithin. And it has phosphatidylcholine, the most abundant phospholipid in the cell membrane. It's good for you, okay? But It is an emulsifier, and it really does help. We need a tablespoon of that. It really does help all of your ingredients in the bread to come together a little bit better, and thus you end up with a better loaf of bread. So there's a, oh, sorry guys, tablespoon of lecithin. And also optional is the Vital Wheat gluten, a teaspoon. I always use Vital Wheat gluten in my breads. I'll try not to clang. Okay, now that's all we need in the liquid portion or the bottom of the bowl. Then it says, well, let me actually combine this. So y'all, if you're using a KitchenAid, I have the dough hook on. Remember, don't go above speed of 2. So let me let this mix up, and then we'll get to adding our next ingredients. The next directions say add 3 cups of flour and mix until a thick batter forms. Sprinkle the yeast, which is a tablespoon of, I'm going to use SAF, it's quick rise yeast, over top, and continue mixing. So let me get to that point and I'll show you what the dough looks like. Y'all, this is a very wet batter, certainly not enough flour. One of the things I did not mention, and I'm just gonna sprinkle my tablespoon of yeast over, and then it says gradually add enough remaining flour, half a cup at a time to form a soft dough. So let's sprinkle over our yeast. I'm gonna let that mix in before I add 2. When you grind your own grains, y'all, make sure that you floof yourself with flour. And yeah, I had to do a little bit of a wardrobe change, y'all. I couldn't stand pulling my shirt up. I'm not used to wearing fitted clothes, so when I do, I feel a little bit self-conscious. So anyway, I'm gonna keep adding flour until it's a soft dough, and then I'm gonna let the mixer knead it for 5 to 6 minutes. You can certainly do it by hand. And then it says let rise in a warm place until doubled in bulk about an hour. So let me get those steps done. I'll bring you back, show you how I'm gonna let it rise, and then we're in the waiting game and I can clean this kitchen up. I think one of the most difficult things about making homemade bread is learning when the bread has enough flour in it. So let me just show you here. You may notice that the dough hook is picking up the dough. It's still pretty sticky, guys. But it's not like, my fingers are coming away relatively clean. So let me share with you, finish my thought that I didn't finish. There's a lot of variables in making homemade bread, and I am not trying to frighten you. You just need to figure out what works best for you and your environment. So it's pretty humid in here today. We've had a lot of precipitation, so high humidity, plus it's cold in here. The size of your egg, there are so many variables. So this said 4 to 4.5 cups of flour. I'm just gonna tell you guys, I used 5.5 because it would not come together and it was like a batter. And this says a soft dough. So we're gonna knead it for 5 to 6 minutes. I'm gonna cover it with a damp tea towel. I'm gonna put it in my oven because it has a bread-proof feature, but just a warm place is fine. And you wanna let it rise until it's double, about 1 hour. I'll bring you back then. I'm worried about my bread, y'all. So I kneaded it. I'm afraid to add more flour at this point because I've already added like a lot, like an extra cup. At this point, I'm not gonna throw the baby out with the bathwater. I'm gonna let it proof. We'll see what it does. If it doesn't work, guys, I don't think it's just straight up, it could be the recipe. I don't think it's the home ground grain. I'm not gonna blame that because I have done other home ground grain breads and they've come out fine. So could just be the recipe, could just be my day. All right, into the oven we go. But what I've been meaning to say, and I keep forgetting, 3rd time's a charm, if you have leftover flour, and it is home ground, you need to refrigerate it because it will go rancid because the germ is still in your flour. All right, guys. Me of little faith. Now the proof is always in the taste, y'all, but we got a doubled in size dough. know, I am so excited. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to shape them into loaves. Now, this is not your traditional dough. That much I have figured out from the recipe, nor is there Ezekiel bread like a traditional dough, but it always comes out really good. So it says, divide into 2 equal portions using your hand, shape into loaves, and place in prepared pans. Let rise another 30 to 45 minutes. So let me kind of tip you down here. Could the kitchen be any smaller? Let me grab a dough scraper thingamabobber. Okay. One thing I've learned, if you're worried about incorporating too much flour into your dough, you can use oil, like, you know, that was just spray olive oil, works really well. Oh gosh, guys, this is so nice. It's nice. Oh, I sound like my dad when I say nice, don't I? Those of you who know my daddy, he would say, that's real nice. Knew my daddy, I should say. All right, guys. So you could weigh this. I'm not going to weigh it. I'm not that exact. Let me kind of portion it out here. And we'll divide it in 2. Maybe a bench cutter would have worked better for this. This is more of a dough scraper, but I think I can still do it. Yeah. So we'll set that aside. And the way I like to do my bread dough, y'all, and I think it's fine however you want to do it. I usually like to do like a rectangle. And these aren't huge loaves. And then I like to roll it. And then you want to pinch it so that your seams don't come open. Then tuck in your ends so that it fits nicely. Whew, couldn't do that twice if I tried. Nicely into your pan. So there we have one dough. We'll do the same with this. So I did want to pose a question to y'all. You know, I'm always looking for things that would be interesting to you all. Not everybody is doing the 3 Rivers Challenge. Not everyone enjoys that content. And I understand that. And I don't want to monopolize the channel just with pantry challenge stuff. But I was thinking one of my goals this year is to read more books. Would you all be interested in us all, not us all, I mean, if I could find a book that's like free, like a podcast type book, would you be interested in doing a little read and comment together? It wouldn't certainly be every video, but it would be something additional we can do. Okay, I'm going to put these back into my oven for about 30 minutes. Then I'm going to take them out, preheat my oven to 350, and it says bake for, I think, wait for it, I think it says 25 to 30 minutes. Yes. So, let's give it a shot, guys. I mean, the worst thing that could happen is it's heavy as lead and it doesn't taste really good, but I think it's going to be fine. It smells amazing. All right, y'all. Well, I have let them rise for about 30 minutes. I have my oven preheating to 350. I'm going to cover them back up and just let them continue to rise until the oven's preheated, and we'll get to baking. All right, y'all. 30 minutes. And if you want to know, is your bread done? I will tell you that having, oops, turn it off, one of these instant read thermometers, you want it to be 190 degrees inside. And one of the things I found interesting, y'all look how beautifully that turns out, is that this book says don't cool your bread like this. Do it on its side so the top doesn't cave in. And I have a suspicion, if you will, that could have to do with the whole grain nature of the bread. That is hot. So yeah, there we have it. I have to change it for the thumbnail, won't I? It smells amazing. It is a denser bread, but it is a whole grain bread, and you would expect that to be a bit denser. I don't want to cut it while it's so hot, so I'll have to pin a comment and let you know how it is below the description box. The first comment I'll pin as to what I thought about it. So I'm going to call this a success, and we have a lot of planning done for next week. I've been over here with my little menu board and my prepping. Not sure which day I'm going to do what, kind of depends on when my sprouts are ready, what day I'll have what, but just having the meals planned ahead is a big help, and I think will help my success. Hope you've enjoyed today's video. Do me a big favor, go ahead and smash that like button. Drop me a comment below. Do you grind your own flour? And if so, do you have any tips for me? Because while this is a lovely bread, there may be times that I want a lighter, whiter bread. That doesn't give me hiccups. All right, guys, I will see you all next week. And until then, you know what to do. Be healthy, be well, be blessed, and take care.